In 1964, when St. Paul VI traveled to the Holy Land, he became the first pope in history to fly on an airplane. 1 year later, he went on the first ever papal visit to the United States. Since then, the world has started to take papal visits a bit for granted. The pilgrim pope, St. John Paul II, went on 104 trips overseas. He visited the United States 7 times. Benedict XVI traveled to more than 20 countries during the 8 years he was pope. In 2008, he celebrated his 81st birthday on the White House lawn in Washington, D.C. And for someone who says he prefers to stay at home, Pope Francis hasn't done too badly in terms of overseas travel. Since his election in 2013, he's already visited 50 countries, including the United States in 2015. Next on his travel agenda is the Mediterranean island of Cyprus and a return to Greece. He traveled to the Greek island of Lesbos already once in 2016. All this getting on and off airplanes is quite impressive for a man who's about to turn 85. So clearly, he must believe that leaving home to visit people where they are is an important part of who he is and what he does. What's interesting about the travels of Pope Francis isn't so much where he has been as where he hasn't been, like France or Spain or his home country of Argentina, for instance. In 2016, he sent his fellow Argentinians a letter to deliberately dampen any hopes of an upcoming visit. "You don't know how much I'd like to see you again," he said, "and I won't be able to do it next year either, because there are commitments with Asia and Africa, and the world is bigger than Argentina." That's the first clue to identifying which countries Pope Francis chooses to visit and which he doesn't. In this bigger world, there are several places no pope has been before, like Myanmar and the Central African Republic, for instance, or most recently, Iraq. His pastoral journey there earlier this year took place in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic and a security threat that was so serious he was advised not to go. But he did, because he believes it's important to build bridges with other faiths, to encourage local Christian communities, however small, and to comfort and support people, whatever the risk. Listen carefully to what he said while celebrating Mass in Baghdad.
Forse nel tuo cuore serpeggia la sfiducia e non ti senti ripagato dalla vita. Se è così, non temere. Le beatitudini sono per te che sei afflitto, affamato e assetato di giustizia, perseguitato.
That's the second clue. Pope Francis chooses to be among the persecuted and the afflicted, those who are disheartened and afraid. And that's why he's returning to the Greek island of Lesbos, home to what was Europe's largest refugee camp until it burned down last year. The Pope knows that a visit there can help draw public and political attention to the plight of refugees, men, women, and children, who continue to drown as they confront the perilous crossing of the Mediterranean Sea.
Cosa faccio io? Era la sua domanda quando vedo che il Mediterraneo è un cimitero. Io le dico la verità, soffro, prego, parlo. Noi dobbiamo accettare questa sofferenza, non dire ma si soffre dappertutto, ma andiamo avanti. No, questo non va.
It's true, suffering is everywhere. But Pope Francis uses his travels to the world's peripheries in order to communicate a bigger message, the message of the Beatitudes. It's a challenging message because actively listening to those who hunger and thirst for justice takes courage. So, will Pope Francis ever return to the United States? Prudence teaches us never to say never, but practically speaking, it is unlikely. There are still just too many countries and too many people that have never seen a pope. And time isn't exactly on his side. That's why he invites us to accompany him spiritually on his next journey, and whatever comes after that, as he brings hope and encouragement to those who need it most.